With permission, Mr. Speaker, I wish to make a statement about the disposal of low and intermediate level radioactive wastes. The Nuclear Industry Radioactive Waste Executive, NIREX, have now completed their search for available sites to be evaluated for a possible near-surface facility for shorter-lived radioactive wastes. In addition to the site at Elstow already announced, NIREX are today announcing that they wish to investigate sites near Fulbeck in Lincolnshire, Bradwell in Essex and South Killingholme in South Humberside.
12 days ago, 4 English villages were thrown into the centre of the debate about Britain's nuclear policy. Their first reaction was shock. Now it has turned to anger. Weldon Action spent last week at one of them, Bradwell in Essex.
Shout, shout, let it all out.
Nuclear dump? I don't want it.
Nor do I.
Come on. I'm talking to
I don't want it.
Come on. We don't want it. Shout, shout, let it all out.
I don't want it.
These are the things I can do without.
I don't want it either.
I'm talking to you. Come on. We don't want it. We don't want it. Shout, shout, let it all out. These are the things I can do without. Come on. I'm talking to you.
I first heard the news, and a friend of mine rang me up to say that, did you know that Bradwell has been shortlisted as a dump for nuclear rubbish? And this came as a terrific shock to me. I hadn't heard the news, and nobody else in the village had heard the news. And the result is that people, I think, feel rather shell-shocked. It just came out of the blue. You can sort of feel the burden that's on people. The atmosphere within a week has changed. There is an atmosphere of gloom in the village. There's an atmosphere of tension. There's an atmosphere of fear. And there's a great deal of frustration, of feeling, is there anything that we can really do about it? And I think some anger at the way that the news was announced.
Playground and look at these children, doesn't it make you feel that this is our future, this is the future of Bradwell? And if they're prepared to put that here, then I really think they can't have any moral feelings at all. That's my opinion. We are not militant people. We are just villagers and mothers and fathers concerned about our families and where we live.
My wife has planted a tremendous number of trees, as you can see, all around. We've been asked to keep the area, good and conserve the area, and now we're going to have this dump on the doorstep.
Well, we're planting trees for our future generations, but what future have they got now if we're going to have a nuclear waste dump a stone's throw away?
Charter fishing is an industry that has grown up in the last 10 years around here, and it's one that now employs quite a few people. The association with the word nuclear dump, we will be associated with Sellafield. I mean, would you go fishing at Sellafield for the day? I wouldn't. I'm sure most of my anglers wouldn't. And it is that word association with nuclear dump, Sellafield, nuclear dump, Bradwell, that will do the damage.
Moved out here, bought a bit of land in 78, started building the house myself in 79, worked day and night with all my mates and friends helping me. We put this up, we had to do roof trusses, brickwork, tiles, everything to get a better house because I couldn't afford to buy one at the time. Now I've got it, everything's fell apart. The complete caboodle, it's just gone, isn't it? It's up the creek.
Well, there must be other places, surely, like my friend just said. Somewhere else. What about the deep mines that we've got? Why not stick it in the middle of the Yorkshire Moors? No one goes there. No one lives there.
Bradwell is no stranger to nuclear controversy. 30 years ago, one of Britain's first nuclear power stations was sited in the fields just behind the village, near the proposed new dumping site. The original power station has provided jobs for many people in the local community.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this 7th meeting of the Workers' Educational Group, in which we're looking at the local history of the area. And I'm going to try and show you that one of our communities, that at Bradwell, is no stranger to change. There have been a lot of things that have happened to Bradwell this century, which have got people up in arms at different times. It was to this site, in 1956, that the government announced that they proposed to build a nuclear power station. Of course, there was opposition and controversy. Public remember Hiroshima. A-plant inquiries told Bradwell was not to be a sort of El Dorado. Here, you can see a press picture of a packed Bradwell Village Hall when the villagers were asked to say whether they were in favour or against the coming of a nuclear power station to Bradwell. And that particular meeting, the local people said yes to the power station. 83 votes, apparently, on that occasion. The latest news that's hit us all in the last couple of weeks is for the disposal of low and intermediate active waste. And here from one of NIREX's publications, we see an artist's impression as to how this scheme might appear. A trench dug into the soil, lined with concrete, and then the drums themselves being lowered into position and stacked together inside the dump.
The new proposals are part of the government's hotly contested policy to expand the nuclear industry. Fresh criticism will come this Wednesday from a parliamentary select committee. They have concluded that the problem of nuclear waste disposal has not been adequately considered. Recent leaks at the Sellafield reprocessing plant in Cumbria have also added to public suspicion and fueled doubts in Bradwell.
You won't just lump it if you dump it.
That's right.
Angry Bradwell residents gather outside the local council offices. They have come to lobby their local MP, John Wakeham. He is the government's chief whip, responsible for organising support for their pro-nuclear policy in the House of Commons. Although he has come out strongly against siting the dump in Bradwell, some residents believe he cannot reconcile this with his government responsibilities.
Well, who is going to speak for us?
I'll see that the points are made, don't worry.
Will there be a vote?
There may be a vote, yes.
And will the whips be on the vote?
Of course there will, yes.
Well, how
and
can
what's
you...
more, I shall vote for it because I believe that is the one way to clear up the question here.
You're voting against your constituents.
No, I'm not.
We have a united...
No, listen. I'm voting in order to make sure Bradwell is not selected.
Well, I don't understand how you can do that.
Don't jump to conclusions then.
Are you then saying that if it's not suitable for the people of Bradwell, it'll be suitable for other people in other parts of Bradwell?
I believe, yes, I do. I believe there are other places which are more suitable. That is exactly my case. But no, it's not a question of that. I actually am a supporter of the government's nuclear policy. But I don't believe this is the right place, and I shall explain why.
But you won't be able to explain why if you're not...
Well, that's exactly what I've come to tell the council.
Yes. Now, if you're listening on the intercom there upstairs...
Can we finish ours? We can't ask the questions.
Well, look, this isn't for public meetings. Look, after the meeting, when the press
Who's
is
going
to
look after
our interests? We must have someone to look after our interests.
Ladies and gentlemen, look, you've heard the MP's statement on the subject. It's very clear to all and sundry.
No, we haven't heard his statement. Exactly. We would like the answer.
We've been disenfranchised.
Now, I want to make my position clear on a number of issues. First of all, as I said, I am a firm supporter of the government's nuclear policy. I believe that a healthy nuclear industry must include proper facilities for the disposal of wastes, is essential if industry is to maintain its competitiveness. Already, electricity costs in France and Germany are significantly lower than in the United Kingdom, and the nuclear share of their industry is about 59% in the case of France and 23% in the case of Germany, and this compares with some 17% in the United Kingdom.
If he's got his future to consider as an MP for this area, it's absolutely vital that he gives us 100% backing.
Do you think he will?
I can't answer for politicians.
But do you think he will from his previous record?
He must, or else he'll have to resign.
If the nuclear waste dump does come to Bradwell, what will you do? Will you resign?
Well, that's a very hypothetical question, and it's a very long way ahead. I should probably be dead and buried before it comes at the rate these things go on.
Okay, can we get it a bit straighter up?
Do you want me to hold the fish up?
Jonathan Porritt, director of Friends of the Earth, visits Bradwell Marina. Whilst established politicians search for a credible waste policy, openly anti-nuclear groups like Friends of the Earth have been making headway in the 4 communities affected by the recent announcement.
It's not a nuclear radiated fish yet, you know.
Good morning, it's John Hayes on Essex from Chelmsford.
Friends of the Earth are the main opponents of the nuclear industry in the battle to win over public opinion. They cite the American experience of shallow trench dumping as a strong argument against the decision to have similar sites in Britain.
Now, with me to discuss the ramifications and possible consequences of that decision are the head of information from NIREX, Peter Curd, and from Friends of the Earth, Stuart Boyle. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for coming in today. Can we talk about the concern a lot of people feel about the American experience of their nuclear waste dumps? A lot of them have been closed down as unsafe. Can we do it better in this country?
Well, what you said is quite true. There were some very unsatisfactory experiences with some of the early American dumps, and frankly that's all they could be called. They merit the word dump. The big difference there is that it was 30 years ago, and that these sites were located for convenience rather than through the very thorough geological and other technical reasons for which we are identifying sites now.
Some of those sites were not as old as 30 years. In fact, some were only 15 to 20 years old. But more recently in America, a new design based at Barnwell, which in fact NIREX in the literature make great play of as being a good example of well-designed site. Well, we have sources in America, and they've sent us a couple of reports recently which have indicated that already, after only 10 to 12 years, there has been a movement of tritium and cobalt-60 off the site.
The fate of Bradwell and the other villages will do much to determine Britain's nuclear policy. The disposal of radioactive waste is rapidly emerging as the critical issue facing the nuclear industry. Bradwell residents finally got their chance to confront their opponents, NIREX, at a meeting on Saturday in the village hall. The village quickly prepared its protest.
Shout, shout, let it all out. These are the things I can do without. Come on, I'm talking to you. Come on. Shout, shout, let it
Hello, les amis de la Terre. Is there someone there who speaks English, please? Pierre Samuel.
Well, we've heard that out of the 6 commercial sites that you have, 3 have been shut down.
I understand that in France, that because you have these sites, I mean, what sort of information do you have? Do they leak?
And all 6 of them have shown that they are leaking.
All 6 have shown signs that they're leaking.
We're starting a big campaign here. We're getting ourselves organised. We've only known for a very short time.
Shout, shout, let it all out. These are the things I can do.
What sort of reception do you think you'll get?
I think it'll be a mixed reception. People haven't heard our story yet, and therefore there'll be many people who'll be alarmed and angry that such a proposition has been put to them.
Whatever happens, we're going to fight them. So NIREX, come down here, boy, you're at war.
Do you think it's difficult to put over the arguments that you're having in a hostile and emotional atmosphere that sometimes these announcements create?
Well, I hope when people listen to me, they'll give the courtesy of listening to what I say. It will take some time for the arguments that I put forward and arguments that we will present people with over the months for people to appreciate them, and they'll need to discuss them and consider what we say. The industry has failed to get its message over, and we accept that. It just happens to be quite a hard job. It's very easy to accuse and start running scare stories. It's very hard to reassure people, and that's one of our difficulties. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me here to address you. This is the first opportunity I've had for speaking to you and trying to give you the story of NIREX. We're at the very early stages of site investigation. And there'll be lots of things. We may be in the debate this afternoon, Chairman. Things may come up which I will say, I didn't know about that. And that doesn't mean that we didn't do our job properly. It merely means that's something else we've got to learn about in the next about 2 years. Basically, when we fill the repository up, after 300 years, there'll be more radioactivity in the Earth. After 300 years, there'll be more radioactivity in the Earth on the site, which is there because God made the Earth that way, than there will be in the repository. Mercury, arsenic, I could stand here and rattle off a long list of chemicals, which in 300 years were as poisonous as they are today.
Mr. McInerney's speech was greeted with scepticism by Bradwell villagers, and they were soon on the attack.
We don't want our roads straightened. We don't want additional railway lines. We moved here because we love the quiet of the countryside. We just don't want you, and we're going to fight you every inch of the way.
As a nation, we've had the benefits of nuclear power for many decades now. Again, I'm just repeating words I've said before.
We're not fighting nuclear power.
The consequence of having a nuclear power programme, the consequence of having such treatments in hospitals, radiotherapy, various diagnostic treatments, the advantages of having advancements in science and industry because of these techniques. There is a consequence, like there is a consequence of driving a car, something goes out of the exhaust pipe.
And finally, I think we would like you to tell us what we do about our property prices and the effect that your 18 months of frigging about in our countryside will do to our possibility of selling our property or moving on. I have heard that you will compensate us if you decide to move your site into our village. But what do we do for the next 18 months? Thank you, that's all I want to say.
Well, we've got experience from Elstow, because Elstow was nominated in 1983, and I actually have brought with me a few copies of a local newspaper which is actually normally hostile to NIREX. And they ran an article, in fact they did a survey on the time it takes to sell houses and the prices at which houses are sold. And they concluded, and I deliberately brought copies here, and I'll leave them here, Madam Chairman, that there was no effect whatever. Now
Well, it may be that Bradwell is different, but I can assure you that house prices in this last week in this area have crashed. May I just read a letter, which is from Bairstow Eaves to somebody who lives in Tillingham. It says, Dear Mr. and Mrs. Smart, re Crick Hollow, Marlborough Avenue, Tillingham. Further to our recent discussions, we unfortunately have to confirm that Mr. and Mrs. Hill are no longer proceeding with the purchase of the above-mentioned property, subject to contract, because of the potential threat to this area of the dumping of nuclear waste.
Answer.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's not a question. I mean, there's somebody's reading from a letter. I can't dispute what's written in the letter. I can say it's illogical.
But it's not a buyer. Thank you very much. Because of one announcement. You can't dismiss it like that.
We have one real example. That's all I'm directing to you two. It's the only example we've got.
At the meeting, one local councillor produced a district plan which he claimed proved that Bradwell did not meet the NIREX criteria for selecting dumps. The documents show that the locality contains a site of special scientific interest and an area of outstanding natural beauty.
How long would it take you for your board to meet to discuss those documents and after verifying those documents, withdraw?
I'd be grateful for a copy of the documents about the...
When can we expect an answer?
Why haven't you read it up to now? You should have read it before you came here. I'd be delighted to make a present of
it. We've read a tremendous amount and we haven't found anything, nor indeed the Department of Environment. Don't just think it's us reading. I mean, these sites have been considered by government.
You've done a year's desk work. You haven't read the Northern Plan. You haven't done much desk work. You haven't read it.
Why? NIREX have picked 4 probably small communities to unload this on. You've said because of the possibility that there may be clay out there suitable to take it. London's built on clay.
Well, if you look down, I don't know whether you've read our leaflets, we put down as one of the criteria that we're going to places deemed to be less densely populated. Why? Because that's socially, it's a bit like how you position nuclear power stations. You put it where you feel it'll be most acceptable. There's no technical reason why it can't be in an large area, but any development, you can better do it in a more lightly populated area. I mean, you couldn't drive a motorway through London. The inner ring road motorway has been cancelled.
The road service, straight in there. But you'd get lynched, so you'd come and take on 200 people down here instead of 2.5 million up there. It's easier.
Are you saying, and this is a point of democracy, are you saying that the district council has considered this, they've come out dead against you, the county council has considered it, and they've come out against it, the chief whip for the Tory party has said it is not on, he has probably had a briefing, and a very good briefing on this, and he said it's not on. Are you saying, against all these people who have democratically looked at this and given considerable thought to it, that you still were going to go ahead with this investigation? Because it's not credible to me that you're saying that. I'm sorry.
As I pointed out, we are implementing government policy. We are being legal and we are operating the system in this country. If we're not, we'll be stopped.
Reverend Paul Booth would like a word.
Now, I brushed the straw out of my hair when I came in here because we in Bradwell are ignorant country yokels. But thank you for the laugh. This village needs a laugh this week. Sirs, please understand the problems that we have to face. And can you please understand, when you make these announcements, the misery and the depression that you are causing and the divisiveness in this community. And if you've got lots of money to spend, instead of giving it to us as present, please spend some of it on research on how to meet this community and social problem.
And now we're going on to our motion. Mr. Rees has a proposal.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to put the following motion to this meeting: that the residents of Bradwell and surrounding villages at a public meeting in Bradwell Village Hall on March the 8th request Her Majesty's Government and NIREX to exclude Bradwell-on-Sea from their list of sites to undergo soil tests in order to gauge suitability for future dumping of radioactive waste.
Would you vote? Overwhelming.
How do you think that meeting went, Mr. McInerney?
Well, it was actually more hostile than I expected. I mean, I do hope people will listen to what I've said and give more mature consideration to it.
There was some expectation that you might have had 1 or 2 supporters out on the floor, but actually there was nobody who supported you at all, was there?
None of the speakers supported me, no.
Does it feel pretty lonely up there when that doesn't happen?
Well, yes, it's lonely because you seem to be a sole voice, but basically we must get this message over. The nuclear industry is very conscious that we've not got the advantages of nuclear power over to the people of this country, and we are just trying to do better.